Welcome to the New Life Stories channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching.
Charlotte Flores and I, Edward Mitchell, were married right out of college after a 3-year relationship. Although we graduated from college the same year, I was 3 years older than Charlotte because I had served in the Peace Corps for 2 years before entering college. Although both families were happy with our choice of partner, the happiest was probably my mother-in-law, Hillary. Hillary was especially happy because not only did she like me, but my affair with Charlotte and our subsequent engagement, wedding preparations, and the wedding itself allowed her to experience it all virtually in a way she had never experienced before. Hillary became pregnant as a teenager and found it very difficult to be a single mom, especially since her religious parents had practically given up on her. A few years later, at the age of 21, she married a much older man so that she could have some financial security and be able to support Charlotte. Hillary didn't have a lavish affair or a real engagement or even anything more than a small wedding, as her husband Sam Flores was already married and wanted something simple. Sam is a decent guy and took good care of Hillary and Charlotte, but he was as dull as still water and as romantic as a doorknob. At the same time, I've always liked Hillary, as she's only 11 years older than me. I don't see her as a typical mother-in-law, more like a amant. In fact, she is just as beautiful as her daughter. She has a dazzling smile shining on her beautiful face, and she is very friendly. She is shy and always dresses conservatively, perhaps because of her past. Charlotte and I had been married for 4 years when Sam died of a heart attack. It wasn't a surprise because of her lifestyle, but Hillary took it very hard. I took care of all of Sam's estate for Hillary, gave her a shoulder to cry on, and, even more than Charlotte, included her in our lives. Plus, thanks to the charity work I was doing, Hillary was kept busy all the time. The one thing I didn't want to help or even discuss was the fact that she wasn't dating anyone. Literally dozens of guys, some much younger, wanted to date her, but she wasn't interested. Shortly after our 6th wedding anniversary, I realized I was in the typical situation of an ignorant husband cheating on a treacherous wife. I may have been clueless, but I wasn't indecisive. When Charlotte's cheating was confirmed, I moved out of our apartment and into an extended stay motel, and immediately split all of our finances. I think Charlotte really did love me, but she was distracted and didn't consider her short-term affair with a man she supposedly had no emotional attachment to serious. She accused me of overreacting. I know that Charlotte trusted Hillary, and that's why she asked her to talk to me. I know this because 3 days after I moved out of our apartment, Hillary visited me at an extended stay motel. When she knocked on the door, I was surprised, but considering how well she had always treated me and how much I liked her, I invited her in. We sat down together on the couch, and she took my hand. "I'm so sorry, Edward," said Hillary with tears in her eyes. "I think you know I didn't raise Charlotte that way." "I know, Hillary," I replied, squeezing her hand. "You have always impressed me as a moral person. You have overcome the obstacles in life's path, and Charlotte's act has nothing to do with you. How are you coping?" "I'm fine. It was a hard blow, but I've never been indecisive, so I took the bull by the horns and moved out. I'll probably be hurting for a long time, but I'll get over it." "Is there any chance you can forgive Charlotte and get back together with her?" "I don't know how to do that, especially since she thinks I'm overreacting. She doesn't realize how much she hurt me this time," I said with tears in my eyes. We talked for an hour, not just about Charlotte, but about other things as well. When she got up to leave, she hugged me longer than she should have, considering she was still my mother-in-law. Once she broke the hug, she said, looking seriously into my eyes, "I hope your divorce from Charlotte doesn't mean you're divorced from me. There will always be a place in my heart for you." After Hillary left, I felt better. By advocating for my daughter, she affirmed that I had a right to feel the way I felt, didn't try to pressure me, and acted like a true friend, not a mother-in-law. I felt better until I went to bed that night. I filed for divorce due to irreconcilable differences a week after I moved out of our apartment and notified the landlord that I was no longer responsible for the rent. Charlotte was very upset. I couldn't understand why she was so upset, what she thought I was supposed to do. She had known me for 9 years by then and had never missold me. Charlotte and her lawyer tried different tactics, including seeking advice, so things were difficult for the first 3 months. I was in shock at the time, but I never wavered from my principles. I might have coped worse if 2 of my single friends hadn't taken it upon themselves to encourage me, and Hillary had called me every week, not only to see how I was doing, although she always expressed concern about it, but with inspirational stories, mostly from her charity work. We also had lunch once a month, and she was always in a good mood during that time. The documentation lay unmoved for about 3 months, and then, at 1 p.m. on Monday, we had a preliminary hearing at the magistrate's office. Charlotte asked for counseling, but my attorney was able to successfully refute this by showing pictures of Charlotte having lunch with Louis at least 2 times since the divorce papers were filed. Louis was the very coworker she was having an affair with, while insisting and crying that she had not had any sexual contact with him since I left. The fact that she had not distanced herself from him led the judge to deny her request for compulsory counseling. Everyone at the hearing realized that this was likely a death blow to a marriage that would likely dissolve in 3 months. On Tuesday night, Hillary called me at work. It was unusual for her to call me at work, but I was always glad to get her call. After the initial exchange of pleasantries, she got serious. You can probably guess, Edward, that Charlotte called me yesterday after the hearing and was very upset that it looked like the divorce was coming up in a few months. Do you believe that too? Yes, Hillary, it's true. I'm very upset about it, but I have to move on. My attorney believes that we will be able to properly handle all the money issues, so the final judgment is expected in about 3 months. I thought you might be sad, so let me take you out to dinner on Friday. Wouldn't it be humiliating for you to go to dinner with your future mother-in-law? But if you're uncomfortable, I can wear a mask, Hillary said. I managed to laugh. No, that would be fine. And no, you don't have to wear a mask. I just don't think I'd be good company, I replied. I'll feed you well and you'll feel better. I know you're not a very good cook, so what time should I pick you up on Friday? I laughed because the fact that you don't cook very well was more of a compliment. Should I pick you up or meet you at the restaurant? No way, I'm the one inviting you, she said. Don't argue. I'll pick you up at, say, 7 o'clock at night. Okay, I agreed. Tuesday night I had another very disturbing dream. If they continue, I will have to see a psychiatrist. To my surprise, not surprise, but amazement, Hillary knocked on my apartment door at 7 o'clock and 2 minutes on Friday. She wasn't wearing her usual conservative clothes. She was wearing an elegant low-cut blouse, a short 3-inch skirt paired with high heels, light makeup that she hardly ever wore that emphasized her captivating emerald green eyes, and a new hairstyle that made her pretty face even prettier. She certainly didn't look 43, more like 30. Hillary looked at me with concern. Wow, you're beautifully dressed, I said as my jaw worked again. Thank you, Hillary replied, clearly pleased by my words. The restaurant is pretty fancy, and I didn't want to look like I didn't belong there. Is that a new outfit? Yes, I bought it and a few other things this week. I decided it was time to stop wearing the old-fashioned clothes I always wear. We went to a restaurant that also happened to have a dance floor. Unfortunately, while she was driving, her skirt went up to her hip. I had never seen her thighs before and chided myself for thinking she was thin. Dinner went pleasantly and Hillary's good mood was infectious, so much so that I almost forgot about the messy divorce. What was unusual, however, was the way Hillary drank alcohol. She usually only has 1 glass of wine when she goes out to dinner, but tonight she bought a bottle for both of us. Since I rarely drink and she only had 1 glass, she finished it after dinner. Then she asked me to dance. The only times I danced with her were at Charlotte's reception and wedding, and a couple nights after Sam's death, when Charlotte and I invited her to visit. At the time, she had been a rather plain and quiet dancer, but now she was an explosive woman. After 6 or 7 dances, we took a break. She went to the ladies' room and I took a table. When she came back, I asked her, "Where did you learn to dance like that?" I pride myself on being a good dancer for a boy, but obviously you were better than me. I took lessons once a week for most of last year. She smiled. Was I doing everything right? You were close to being a better dancer, and you definitely had a lot of boys eyeing you, I smiled. Oh, I didn't, she said, blushing. And then, as if on cue, a guy came up to us and asked if I would mind if he danced with my partner. A little surprised, I realized that by Hilary's appearance people could easily mistake her for my companion. Coming to my senses, I said it was up to my mother-in-law. The guy was embarrassed. Hilary patted my hand and said with a smile, "Are you kidding?" However, since this is only a second date, I don't want to disappoint you, especially if some attractive woman wins you over. So thank you very much for the invitation, but I decline. However, if you allow me, I am sure I will see you here again. She laughed and placed her left hand on mine. The young man smiled, then kissed her right hand and walked away. "You little devil," I said. At that moment, a waiter came to our table and placed something that looked like a Bloody Mary in front of her and a soda in front of me, which we hadn't ordered. I had already started to say something when she interrupted me. "I ordered this on the way back. Now drink it, and then we'll dance some more." I had never seen her drink hard liquor, but she quickly straightened up her Bloody Mary, and I finished my soda, after which we went dancing. After 5 or 6 more dances, Hilary leaned over to me and said, "I think I've reached my limit, both in terms of alcohol and dancing. Will you give me a ride home? I shouldn't be driving, maybe I'm drunk. I don't know because I've never been drunk before, but I'm pretty sure I can't drive without crashing into something." I took the car keys while Hilary went to the ladies' room one more time and then drove to her house. She lived in a small, elegant house in a nearby suburb, quite fashionable. Sam had left her a fairly substantial amount of money, about $8 million by my calculations. Hilary was very talkative in the car, saying several times, attributing it to the drink, that she hoped I had enjoyed myself and had forgotten about her unfaithful daughter for a while. When we pulled up to her house, she was struggling with the garage keys. I took them from her and unlocked the door, then helped her in. Once inside, she closed the garage door and slid the lock tight. She then pulled something out of her purse and held it out to me. "I took this off in the bathroom to give you as a souvenir," she said with a laugh. It was her panties. I'm sure I blushed, but it was nothing compared to what happened next. Suddenly, she pulled her skirt down. When I asked, "What are you talking about?" she literally ripped off her blouse, unbuttoning it and exposing her bra underneath. I'm sure I blushed. I had always imagined that underneath her old-fashioned clothes was a beautiful body, but she actually had an amazing body that any woman in the world would envy. Hilary moved closer to me, and as she covered my shoulders, neck, and cheeks with short kisses, she continued to murmur something. I don't think I memorized or understood all the words she muttered. "I've been sexually frustrated for decades, and I need you to do something about it," she said, placing her hands on the bulge in my pants. I lost my composure and led her into the bedroom. I remember the first thought in my head was that I was going to really regret it in the morning. I was physically and emotionally exhausted. There was no way I could get up and leave, especially after she said, "Please stay the night, Edward. I have never woken up with the person I loved before." A lover? What? I had to set that statement aside for the moment as she rested her head on my shoulder, and I quickly fell into a deep sleep. I know I had several erotic dreams during the night. I don't usually remember them, but this time I remembered them the next morning. They were all about making love to Hilary. In the morning, my last dream turned out to be a reality. I felt activity below my waist and suddenly realized it was real, and Charlotte had faded into the background. She was in my past. I came to the conclusion that I loved Hillary. We spent at least 3 evenings a week together and talked on the phone every day. Although I enjoyed being married to Charlotte for over 5 years, to be honest with myself, my relationship with Hillary was much better than my relationship with Charlotte. Yes, despite her age, Hillary had been sexually inexperienced the first night we spent together, but now she was not only experienced, but expressive, loving, adventurous, and energetic. I knew I had really fallen in love with her, but because of the 11-year age difference, and mainly because she was still my mother-in-law, I couldn't muster my usual resolve. Despite this, our relationship survived the finalization of the divorce. Afterward, Hillary took Charlotte on a cruise for a week. When Hillary returned, she said that the cruise had helped Charlotte immensely. Her anger at me for leaving her had diminished and almost completely disappeared. Disaster struck when Hillary called my office early Friday morning. We had planned to go to a show that night and then, of course, play hide and seek in bed. She was crying and begging me to come to her house as soon as possible. I managed to get to her house a little after 3 in the afternoon. When Hillary opened the door, it was obvious that she was crying, and she immediately threw herself into my arms. I let her cry on my shoulder for a few minutes and then carried her to the couch in the living room. "Okay, tell me what's going on," I said, taking her hands in mine. "I swear I didn't plan this," she sobbed and then continued in scrappy sentences, as if she didn't know this was possible. "Please don't hate me. You can just leave." I had no idea what she was talking about. Finally, I managed to calm her down. I squeezed her hands, looked her straight in the eyes, and said, "Stop it, tell me what's going on." She sobbed, took a deep breath, and said, "I'm 7 weeks pregnant." This was news to me. We had talked about it before, and she was sad that she couldn't get pregnant because she knew I wanted to have children. She had tried with Sam, but it didn't work out. And before that, some doctor had told her, for some reason I no longer remember, that she probably couldn't get pregnant again. Since I was stunned, I didn't say anything for a while, but I'm sure my eyes widened. Hillary interpreted this to mean that I was upset and would probably give up on her, and started crying so hard I thought there might be an emergency. "Go to work. I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time," she said. My mind suddenly cleared. I loved her more than I had ever loved anyone before. I really wanted to have at least one child. I didn't care if she was older than me. It was time to make a decision, and it was an unequivocal one. I took her face in my hands and wiped her tears away with my thumbs. "Stop crying, Hillary. I have something to ask you." After repeating it a few dozen times, she finally stopped. I asked, "Do you want to make me the happiest man in the world and marry me?" Apparently she didn't understand right away because I had to ask twice more before she understood my words, smiled, and exclaimed, "Yes." Her tears dried up and we pressed against each other. I told her how much I loved her. She told me that she had been the happiest woman for the past 6 months, and now she was even happier. Suddenly we heard the front door open and, "Mom, are you here?" We looked at each other like frightened rabbits, turned at the sound, and saw Charlotte enter the living room. She was as surprised as we were. Charlotte spoke first. "What are you doing here, Edward?" I could not answer. Suddenly Hillary said words that I'm sure she didn't mean. "I'm 7 weeks pregnant, it's Edward's baby, and we're getting married." A slight smile appeared on Charlotte's face. She must have thought it was a joke when she saw how big my eyes were and witnessed my intimate embrace with Hillary, but the smile faded and her eyes filled with tears. I immediately jumped up and caught her before her head hit the ground. I picked Charlotte up in my arms and carried her to the couch that Hillary had just left. Hillary immediately rushed over to help and pulled out smelling salts and a cold compress. Before applying them, she turned to me and said, "I think you had better go before she comes to her senses." Then smiling, she asked, "Can we go shopping for wedding rings tomorrow?" "Sure," I replied, kissing her deeply. I'll give the tickets for tonight's show to a friend. Just call me and tell me what time to pick you up tomorrow." We kissed again and I left. I actually gave my tickets to a friend and his wife who were happy to get them, and I even babysat their kids as practice. We didn't go ring shopping on Saturday. Hillary called me around noon and told me that Charlotte was staying the night and that it would probably take them all weekend to work things out. I couldn't argue with her. I told her that I loved her and that we would go shopping when we could. Hopefully it would be Monday. She laughed and hung up the phone. I don't know everything that Hillary and Charlotte talked about, of course, but I do know that Hillary loved Charlotte like a mother loves a grown child, despite Charlotte's mistake with Louis, and that Charlotte and Hillary had been a team for years before I met them. Hillary told me that she had been completely honest with Charlotte about her long-standing feelings for me. Dear friends, if you liked this story, please share your thoughts in the comments and put like or dislike. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you all. Until new stories.